It is important that you as a teacher explain to your students not only how to create the filter, but also why they need to filter their own water by explaining to them the impacts that can result from drinking non-filtered water. Along the way, it is important that you encourage them to ask questions so that they clearly understand each step of the process. Why is simple. Your students must filter their water to prevent diseases that are carried through the water. It is therefore a way of preventing death from occurring within communities as a result of diseases and illnesses. Explain to the children that the water is dirty and not clean before it is filtered because feces of the animals contaminates the water. Tell the children that the effects of drinking the water can affect a person both short-term and long-term. Short-term effects include becoming sick and ill, which could lead to not being able to work, go to school, or have fun. Long-term effects include the contraction of infections throughout the person's body that eventually leads to death. It is important to let the children know this information in a compassionate way. There are various ways that you can teach your class members this vital information. The first way is to draw a brainstorm on the blackboard whilst explaining each reason as you write it down. This would also include the students copying it onto the poster you would provide them with, which is included in the resource kit. This will allow the children to then go back home and explain why to their friends and family so that the message can be clearly passed on. The second way is to ask the students about what they think can happen when people become sick in relation to the reasons, in order to link the effects back to their own family and life. The third way is to show them the water that they normally drink and explain to them while showing them the insides of the bottle and what they are drinking when they drink the water. This will allow them to make a connection between what they are drinking and the effects that these have on them, as well as explaining the reasons as to why they are filtering water and why they should not drink the contaminated water. You should tell them why this method of filtering water is the best for them, their family, and their community. This type of water filter uses natural ingredients from their natural environment, which means that after the filter has been used, the materials can simply be placed back into the environment. The best method of teaching the children what materials to gather for the making of a filter, where to find the materials, and how to find them is to take them outside and gather them along with the students. You should gather the materials one step at a time. For the steps to be remembered by the children best, you should first show them how to do it yourself before then allowing them to go off and find their own. Once they return with their materials they have gathered, make sure that you tell them whether the materials they have gathered are correct or how they could better find materials. This will ensure that the materials they are gathering are the correct amount and of the correct standard. This is also a way of engaging the children's attention. Teaching the students the process of purifying clay will be the most challenging part for you. Before you begin explaining how to gather the materials to the children, hand out the posters provided in the educational resource kit to them so that they are able to follow along whilst you are explaining it to them, to ensure they are correctly understanding and interpreting the information. The best way to explain the process to children would be to verbally explain it as well as draw images on the board. Once they understand each step, you should move on to giving them a demonstration on how to do so. You should do this in front of the class, in front of all the students. It is also super important that you are making sure that the students feel comfortable asking questions along the way. The construction process should be broken up into stages, however taught the same way. You should first teach them how to mold the purified clay into a pot. You should then move on to place all layers inside it accordingly. The construction of the water filter should be done by each student individually, with you directing them through the process at the front of the class. You should do each step at a pace that suits the students in your class. You should ask the children questions about what they think to ensure that they are picking up the steps and following along correct. You should explain each layer of the filter as you are doing it and make sure they understand the required size of the clay pot as well as the amount of material in each layer. Questions you could be asking the students include things like, according to your sheet, what layer comes next? And what is this material called? Using the filter is a simple task, which means that it will be easy to teach the students. After constructing the filter in class, show the students how to simply use the filter by slowly pouring the contaminated water into the top of the filter. Get the children to come up to the front and give it a go. As they are doing so, make sure you correct them in front of the rest of the students on where to fix up. This will ensure that they are doing the process correctly. Whilst correcting them, be sure to say to them, make sure you go and tell your friends and family about this when you teach them. At the end of the lesson, encourage the children in your class to teach their family and friends at home the new skill you have taught them. It is important to fuel their excitement at learning a new skill by telling them that their parents will love hearing about why and how to do it, so that they are more inclined to teach them as soon as possible, therefore spreading the process quickly. You should continue to ask them what they would tell their family and friends why they create the water filter, and how they would explain how to make the water filter. You should have a follow-up lesson to make sure that they know why they learnt how to make a water filter, how to make it and use it correctly so that you know that the correct process has been passed on. This can be done one-on-one with each child, in groups where they create one per group and then teach to the class with everyone in the class correcting the students presenting, or by simply playing a question game with prizes. During this follow-up lesson, you should explain to them that after the filter has become obsolete, the materials can either be reused or placed straight back into the environment from where it came from. To make sure the students understand what you mean, you should get the students to do so with the filters they had previously made.